Welcome to How Now, the podcast where we talk about how to live in the now. And here's your host, Kim Martin Raymond.
Peace and blessings, love and light, and welcome to this edition of the How Now podcast, where we talk about how to live in the now. I'm your host, Kim Martin Raymond. I'm a minister, spiritual life coach, author, and founder of Redefining You, LLC, where I help my clients to realign themselves, mind, body, and spirit. And if this is your first time listening into the How Now podcast, welcome. Welcome to the tribe. We're happy to have you. Make sure that you go over to www.hownowpodcast.com, select your favorite podcast platform, and make sure that you share, like, subscribe, and join us for some of our former shows and some of our shows that are coming down the pike. You can also click on the banner at the bottom of the screen that will take you to the How Now YouTube channel, where you can like, subscribe, and share as well. So you have two ways of checking out the show. You can either watch it in the now or you can listen in. Again, that's www.hownowpodcast.com. So let's dive in. Today, we're going to be talking about discovering the leadership in you, your leadership truth. We're going to be talking about some of the pivots that we've had to make during this time of pandemic. It's been a time where we've been challenged to really dig deep and to really embrace who we are and what we want to reveal to the people, to the world, how we want to go about navigating in this new space that we're in. And to help me with that is my fantastic, handsome guest, those who are watching, who is to the left of me. And as is customary with the How Now podcast, I'm going to have him to introduce himself at this time.
Wonderful introduction. Thank you very much. I appreciate it. I'm grateful to be here today. My name is Mike Green. I'm a master certified coach. I have over 11,000 hours documented of coaching various people from around the world, whether it be in Middle East, which I was just there last year, or whether it be anywhere in America, or even, believe it or not, on every continent, I have coached someone. And I wrote a book about it in Wandermust, a leadership truth, a hero's journey to 7 truths. So that's me, and I live in the interior of Alaska.
In Alaska, okay, yeah, and we're sitting here in balmy Atlanta, 84 degrees today.
Yeah.
So we're throwing sun rays your way, but I'm sure that it's just wonderful. But like I said, to be able to coach people on all 7 continents is impressive. But that just goes to show there are leaders, there are people who are in need of coaching in every corner of the earth. So there are always people seeking, to figure out what their purpose is and what their plan is. It is something that is universal. So we are so happy to have you here today. Okay, so what I want to talk about first is, talk a little bit about, what you were doing in your business prior to the pandemic, with regards to your coaching.
All right. I was working for a Middle Eastern company in Saudi Arabia. My family went with me. So my 2 boys, my lovely wife, and our dog moved to Saudi Arabia in 2018. And then as the pandemic took place, that's where I was up until last year.
Okay. And so you were able to do some you were doing some work and you were doing your coaching on the side, or was that something that you?
I was a leadership facilitator, so I taught leadership courses and also coached the executives or the executive team. Now, when I say executive team, your audience probably has a different experience. Well, I'm basically working with the leadership from above we would consider the workers, right, or the blue collars. I was working up from there, all the way up to high level executives.
Gotcha. And then, of course, the pandemic hit.
And I decided to live in the now and not focus on all the outside distractions of living in a kingdom where, much like unlike in America where you have a choice and you can at least voice it, we could not. And I decided, what can I control? So I controlled then. I said, okay, what can I do now that 5 years down the road, I'll be grateful that I did that now. And I decided to write a book that many, many people asked me to write for years and years. So I spoke with my wife about it because it's a time crunch.
Yeah.
It takes a lot of time away from your family, but we decided I'll work early in the morning and work late at night, and the boys are in bed. And I decided to write a book.
Right. Wow. And so, I mean, that's a lot, like you said, to be able to turn around and say, okay, what do I need to do different? And that's, I think a lot of people had that experience of trying to say, okay, what now? And,
Exactly.
and I think that's kind of the premise behind this show. It was the whole thing of, we know what happened. We know that there's a pandemic. We know that that we are limited in some of the things that we're going to be able to do, but it's more like, how now? How are we going to function in this space now?
Exactly.
How are we going to, make what's happening make sense and make it work for us? And so, like you said, I'm sure the book was probably, very therapeutic too, to be able to express on those things. So talk a little bit about the experience of writing that book and how long it took you.
Right. Well, a great coaching question I use for my clients in the now, when I'm speaking about the now, what is something that you can be doing now that 5 years down the road, you'll look at and say, I'm so grateful that I had the presence of mind to live in the now. Because everyone around me, a lot of people were just focusing on the news or focusing on exterior things, and they were allowing that to take over their lives. And I was like, wait a minute, you still have control living in the now in your life. And I said to myself, and I talked to my wife about it, what could we be doing now that'll set us up for great success down the road while everyone else is being, focusing on everything except themselves or living in the now. So when we decided on the book, I started writing it. It was very, very therapeutic in a lot of ways, because it allowed me to be present while believing and reenacting or remembering all the great stories that I had around leadership. Oh yeah, that's happened. Oh, I could be using that now. So that allowed me to not only to live it even more, right? Living in the now, and it polarized it, if you will, but also my facilitation of leadership courses, even though they were on Zoom, were even better because it allowed me to focus on the things I can control, living in the now, and being the best I possibly can, no matter what those exterior forces were doing out around us, perceived and real, right, for everyone.
Wow. And that's huge. That's huge to be able to, like you said, number one, have that foresight to be able to see, or to be able to look and say, okay, what can possibly be happening 5 years from now? Because a lot of people, their future seemed grim to them. Everything seemed dismal. They're just like, no, I can't look 5 years ahead because, what if I can't go outside 5 years from now? But what if you can? Or what? Or if you can't, what, you're just gonna sit and put yourself in a vacuum? So I mean, that's a really, really key question to be able to say, okay, let me just think about, what are the possibilities? Because I think one thing in that is hope. It gives people hope that 5 years from now, things could be different, things could be better, things, may be able to progress. And so now I have hope for the future. So I think that's an excellent question to ask. And that's a good way of getting people to not focus so much on what's happening immediately around them in their environment, and to focus more on what they can possibly do about that. So I think that's
like right now. Exactly.
Awesome. Yeah, that's
in the now, and know that you're investing in your mental capacity currently that's going to pay dividends down the road. I just say 5 because usually most people talk about 5-year plans. Sometimes people talk about 3-year plans, but great. So you're going to live not in the now for the next 3 years, so that perceived date arrives, and then you're like, oh, kind of like that Pink Floyd song, Time. Everything's just kind of fritter and wasted those days, right?
That's right. That's
So,
right. That's right.
There's a great symbols that I use for living in the now, and I'll put it in the chat box. So you have the greater than symbol, which basically, and then you have that little I, and then you have the less than symbol.
Mm-hmm.
In between the greater than, right? I'll do it like this for your people.
Mm-hmm.
So living, I can't do it, but
but you have your
living,
yes.
so invert them. So have the bottoms just like that, right? Exactly.
Wait. Oh, no.
Like this.
Gotcha.
So in between there, right? So life is happening and it's pointing into a direction of the V, and then this is you, right? You are here, and then all of a sudden everything in front of you is, so that I on your chat box describes you. That is you in the now. And I can send you a picture of it. I actually have a picture. I have a symbol of living in the now on the back of my truck. So when people say, what's that? I go, that reminds me when I get in the vehicle that I'm going to live in the now, or when I see it.
Right. But I love that. I love the symbolism behind it, because it does. And even when you were talking about, doing your book and reflecting, it does. You have to look back on some things and say, yes, because sometimes it sparks, or it allows you to remember something that you've forgotten. Because sometimes we do that. Sometimes we get so absorbed in what we're doing that we forget some of the lessons that we've learned until we have to apply them, or until we have to look and say, okay, now, in order for me to be able to do this, I may have to reach back on some of the previous experiences that I've had. So I think that's wonderful to be able to say that I'm standing right here in the middle, but I've got to look back on those things in order for me to forge ahead. And so that's definitely a key factor.
Right. And in the book, I write about what leadership truth I found or discovered on every continent. For example, Antarctica. When I worked in Antarctica, I learned the leadership truth of emotional intelligence. Why is it so important to have emotional intelligence when you lead? Well, basically, I won't get into it now, but one size does not fit all when it comes to leadership, right? So emotional intelligence, you're at least living in the now, realizing that the person in front of me is not like the last person in front of me. And I need to cue in on what is important to them and how they speak, to be the best I possibly can as a leader, or just simply as a friend, or to be able to listen with them.
Right. Because I believe that, everybody has, and I'd like to know your opinion on this as well, that everybody has a potential to lead in some form or fashion.
Absolutely.
And and it may not be the leader of an organization. It may be, a leadership role in your community. It may be a leadership role in your family, and so, I think, when people think about leadership, kind of what is something that they tend to think? What is something, or give me something that's like, people think this about leadership, but that's really not quite so.
You gotta have a title, right? Right. Or I have to have influence over others, meaning I lead two people, or I'm the lead, or I'm in charge of two other people. I mean, we can lead when we go to the grocery store by simply taking back your cart to the area you're supposed to, not leaving it in the parking lot. Or we can lead as we go to the post office and recognize that there's someone in front of us who may be a little infirm, and allow them to get ahead of you, right? Even though you're 2 away from the counter and there's 6 people behind you, you step forward and say, ma'am, come on up here, Sonny, and have a break there. That's leadership. So leadership is all around you. You just take the opportunity to do it.
Right. See, and that's something that's pivotal, because just like you said, people tend to go with titles. We all, because we feel like, I think when we think about titles, we feel like that's what defines us. When we introduce ourselves to people, we start rattling off all of the things that we are, all of the titles that we have. So people can go, oh, wow, you're a coach. Oh, wow, you're a minister. Oh, wow, you're a podcast host. Oh, wow, you're an author. Oh, wow. People tend to look for those titles and not really focus in on what leadership means, or what's behind what that title is. And I think that that's something important to, to bring out. So I love that. I hope that people have their pens and papers out, because these are some important things to remember. It's not leadership. It's not a title. It's a form of empowerment and the ability to make, conscious decisions based on what you see going on around you, huh?
Right. Or understanding, I like to ask my clients this question: how are you showing up in the X situation? And as a parent, I have a 6 and a 9-year-old, and I'm constantly reminded that whenever they're around, they are paying attention. So they bring out the best leadership in me, whether it be very polite when I go to the store, or I'm on the phone on hold for 20 minutes or whatever. I know my kids are listening, so I do my very best to be good to all people, and that's a form of leadership as well.
Setting the example. That's exactly right.
Exactly.
It's setting the example and allowing those around you to be able to see how you handle situations. I think about that even in my own personal life. And a lot of my listeners know this, that, I lost my youngest daughter some years ago, 14 years ago. And people look at you to see how you handle a situation. And everybody's looking for your reaction. I think about social media now, and people are constantly putting cameras in your face, because they want to see how people are reacting. Or if they see a certain situation and they say, oh my goodness, let me get my camera out, because they're going to fight, or they're going to yell, they're going to argue, or they're going to, have some form of reaction. And I think that you make a valid point. A strong part of leadership is being able to, say, okay, how do I handle this situation? How am I showing up? How am I self-regulating?
Exactly. Yeah,
That's
without a doubt.
important.
Well, it's also interesting when I ask clients, how are you showing up in these situations? Usually they come to me and say, well, I want to do this, and this person or that person. And I was like, okay, that's fine. Those people are not here right now. But how are you showing up? And then I say to them, is this congruent? What you're telling me, or the way in which you're leading, is it congruent? And they look at me puzzled, and I let it sit for a while and let them work through it. Sometimes I have to talk through it.
Right.
I say, well, when you're not congruent in the decisions you make, it's because you're not leading from your truth, your inner truth, right? Now, some people say, well, inner truth, value, same. That's true. It depends on the person. But for me, I say when it comes to leaders, there's truth. I know that I'm going to treat everyone with respect and the idea that they can do it. And let's just say I'm talking to a client and they say, in that situation, or me, so you mean when we're talking about, are you answering this question congruently? And if there's angst,
right,
it's because you're not congruent. When the absence of angst in the beginning of happiness or being in the moment is the beginning of congruence. So whenever you find yourself just not really, this is not working, it's not working, ask yourself, what is really my truth when it comes to leadership? And you could say, well, I want to be thorough. I want to overachieve, or I want to teach people integrity. I want to be integrity. I want to come across from a place of integrity. Now, if your listeners are saying, well, I don't understand, Mike, think about this. If I went to any of your coworkers that you interact with on a daily basis, and I said, please tell me about Kim. Oh, she's so pleasant. She's so patient. Well, patient may be one of your truths, right? So if I ask people that you work around you, what would you hope that they would say? And most likely that is getting close to your truth, right, as a leader.
Right. Because people have an opportunity to see you in different, different situations and how you respond. And again, like you said, it goes right back to being able to see how you respond, how you show up. And that's so important. When we talk about leadership, it's so important to make sure that we're being the best version of ourselves. And we hear a lot of that. There are so many things that are so cliche right now, because they're people are talking about, self-care, and they're talking about,
Right.
making sure that you are setting boundaries and things like that. And those things are important as well. We definitely want to, touch on that, because when we're showing up a certain way, or when when we have an expectation, or when we respond to a certain situation, it's how we've perceived that situation to be, and it's how we responded to it. And so I think it's I'm trying to formulate thoughts around that whole thing of setting boundaries, and the importance of being able to do that, because that's how people are going to handle you, based on how what you give them permission to do.
Right. May I offer something to that?
Absolutely.
Can I add to the greatness that you brought to this podcast, and that in your illustration right there? When it comes to the how, ask yourself, what's my intent here? What's my intent? So if you say to yourself, and I just want people to be aware of when they think of their intent, right? Their intent, there lies the how, or the truth that you're going to go off and do it. For example, I am known as a very, very hard worker in the area I live in. And I have several projects going on right now that some people show up and support me, or they may interrupt me and want to help. So I am very driven when it comes to doing tasks, and I have to stop myself. And one of the people next door is far different than me in every aspect. In fact, they'll make the job go twice as long.
Right.
And I have to think to myself, what is my intent here?
Right.
Is my intent to finish the job, and then at the cost of a relationship where they won't come back over when I may need them? I may even call them and they think, well, last time you were pushy, right? Or you kind of just told me what to do. We didn't have any interaction. So I have to really stop myself when I want to just jump into those jobs or those interactions where I just want to have a complete what's important to me.
Right.
But when you ask yourself in the now, what's the intent here for my neighbor who comes over when I'm right in the flow of the job, the task is like, God, now you're going to interrupt me. So then I have to ask myself, what's the intent? And also, where is the learning here? What's this situation trying to teach me or ask me? Now that is a very powerful question.
Yes,
to learn about the now. What is this situation or person or blank? Will you fill in the blank? Trying to teach me or ask me? That's a really, really good question.
Yeah, absolutely.
People pay big money for that question.
Oh, yes.
So I'm giving it to you for free.
Okay, y'all, you got it for free. All right. Don't ever say we didn't give you anything. Okay.
That's right. That's right.
I love that. But the one thing that you said that resonated with me is about, the relationship. Because no man is an island, even though we talk about leadership, we still have to talk about the relationship that we have with others. Especially if we're in a leadership role, we got there because of other people and what they could have possibly seen in us, and how we responded to and interacted with them that allowed us to be in that role of a leader. I think another thing that resonated again is just like you're talking about is impact over intention. What is our intention, or what is it that we expect? And that impact, how is what we're saying or what we're doing impacting that other person, or how is it, changing the dynamic of our relationship with that person? Like you said, you can tell your neighbor, hey, get out of here. I'm busy. I don't have time for this. But is the intent to damage that relationship so that you can finish what you're doing? Is it a time frame thing? And then how can we best express that to someone, even if suppose it is on a time crunch and we do need to do that? How can we effectively tell that person that without damaging the relationship?
Yeah, absolutely. Because relationships are the currency to life and the leadership.
I love that.
Yeah.
I love that. I had to write that down. Relationship. Okay,
That's
y'all write it down with me. Relationship is the currency to life.
Yeah.
I
Or
love
you could even add into fruitful life,
to a
above
fruit-
average, if you wish,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
Now, some of your listeners, as you're writing this down, might think, man, okay, Mike, Kim, that's easy to say. But I mean, who's going to pay attention to that all the time? I'm busy. I don't have time to put my grocery cart back into place or bring it out there. I'm busy. I got these things. That's fine. And that is honest. And that's true. I'm just asking you to think about, just be aware of when you have the opportunity to either work the intention or to learn from this experience in the now. Just be aware of it, because guess what happens? Your subconscious mind runs about 92% of everything around us right now, and about 8% is conscious, right? So you're seeing the purple, beautiful woman in the background behind Kim, and you see me, and here's some wood behind me. There's, so you're seeing that. That's 8%.
Right.
If you just raise your awareness,
Yes.
you'll find opportunities when people are being in the now or not being in the now,
Right.
or they're rather to damage a relationship to get what they need now. Right. Just be aware. Just raise your awareness. You'd be a lot better off.
I love that. And that makes perfect sense, because we do tend to do that. We tend to, just go through the motions sometimes and don't really stop to pay attention to what it is that's going on around us. And that's so critical. It's so critical. You tell people, and I'm trying to remember the phrase that people use, where they're just like, I'm just existing. I'm not living. I'm just going through the motion. I'm just, and you almost become robotic. Everything is, you're pushing past people. You're doing things you don't even notice that you knocked somebody over, or you hit somebody with your cart, or you did something, because you're so absorbed in those unconscious thoughts that you're not paying attention to what's happening in front of you. And it's like you said, it's so pivotal and important to take the time to have that level of awareness. Like you said, such a low percentage of the things that we are consciously aware of over the things that are unconscious, and some of it is just things that we do by rote.
Right. Just be aware of it. That's why I say to my clients, and they come back 2 weeks later, they go, "Oh my God, I can't believe it! Just because you told me to be aware, the subconscious mind is just saying, oh, bing, bing, bing." So it's pretty amazing, because it's all about living in it now. Because the people who are just so self-absorbed, they do have hints, or they have flashes of remorse of, I've wasted that time all through the pandemic. All I did was watch Fox News and believe everything I heard. And I just, and I didn't want people to come to my house, whatever. We have to adapt and overcome, and then ask yourself, what am I supposed to be learning here? Or what can I teach someone else? Or how can I support my neighbor? And things like that.
Right. So let's give them a little review of those things, because I want to make sure that people are writing these things down, because it's important, as we're looking to make these pivots and changes, and looking to experience how we can live our best life, is to be able to, like you said, have a plan. First and foremost, have that 5-year plan. What are you seeking to do? Or what is it that you could see yourself doing 5 years from now that's going to be beneficial, or that's going to, be able to provide that currency that you need in life, that physical and that emotional currency that you'll need. So that's one. And then we talked about making sure that we are present with our relationships, how we're dealing with others, making sure that we raise our level of awareness about those things that are going on around us, and how we interact, so that way, it's intention over impact. How we are, what is our intention, and how does it impact those around us, and how does it impact us? So that's something that's important too.
Think of the intention as pumping the brakes for a moment and just double checking everything around you, and then being able to move forward congruent as a leader, right? Just kind of pump the brakes. So what's my intention here? To yell at this person, to have this never happen again, or to vent how mad I am that something went wrong? Yeah, okay, well then you might want to do it to yourself as you walk around the block or something. And then, and as I say about these awarenesses, as you're talking, being aware, in my book, I talk about 7 different times when I did not do that. And I learned from it, and I actually discovered something because of it.
Right.
So it does take time, but just give yourself patience and grace,
Yeah.
and you will overcome. And it's all small incremental changes. It's not like tomorrow I'm going to do this. No, it's not that way, because life doesn't happen that way.
No, it doesn't. No,
You
it
really
doesn't.
need to figure out what's the pace of life. Focus on nature. Cut your grass and say, okay, let's see when I need to do it again.
Right.
4, maybe 7 days, depending on Atlanta weather, right?
If it rains, my grass is growing. It's a jungle out there.
Yeah.
If you make a mistake and spit on it, my grass is going to shoot up.
Yeah.
Yeah. That lawnmower stays at the ready.
Yeah.
I'm a little sensitive by that one.
Yeah.
But just like you said, nature, focus on nature. I love it. You talk about, facing, talk about the truth. And that's and that's a huge one too. Be honest with yourself. So often we are not honest with ourselves, and that's too, we cause stumbling blocks for ourselves because we do that. We're not honest, just like you said, you realize that there were 7 mistakes that you made, but you learned from them.
Oh yeah.
How do you learn from the mistakes if you don't admit that a mistake was made?
Right. And Joseph Campbell writes about the hero's journey, right? Joseph Campbell in the late 60s came up with the archetypes, and we experienced the hero's journey. And I mean, what I mean by hero, I'm not talking about firefighter or we're talking about in the archetype type.
Okay.
And he talks about how the hero goes through life's life lessons, if you will. And in there, he talks specifically about basically 7 different things that go through. A hero has a call to go off and do something, and they refuse the call. And eventually they say, okay, I'll do it. And then they go, and then they have, just like in every movie you've ever watched, the hero's journey is taking place over and over again. And in my book, I have 7 different heroes' journeys on 7 different continents. And then my client that I'm coaching here in Alaska, because they go out in the bush with me, that means far away from anybody. And they come out and they experience their hero's journey. And I'm the sage or the coach that supports them on that intention. When they come to Alaska, they come with an intention to answer a question or to gain clarity on a topic in their lives. And through that experience out in the bush, where you don't have cell phones and you don't have any connection, you get real quick. Once you hear that helicopter go over that mountain, it's like, I'm way out here.
Right. Wow.
And then they all of a sudden get real close to me, like, okay, there's no bears here. No, there's not a bear behind every bush. But my whole point is this, is that what was really important to me is to realize, be aware that I'm going through, that life is not static. It's constantly changing. And if you gain that awareness in the now, you can be the best version of yourself, which changes your trajectory from being just mundane, straight across, nothing exciting happening, to a trajectory that ultimately in time will benefit you and those around you as a leader, or as a neighbor, or as a loved one, or as a spouse.
I love that. Like you said, life is not static. Just like you said, it's not static. And I think sometimes we get stuck in that thought that, I can only, this is all that it's going to be for me. It's never going to change. And I think a lot of us got hit upside the head when we thought, this is my life. I'm cruising along. This is how everything's going to be. And then that pandemic hit and you couldn't go outside and you couldn't do things. And you'd been on that job, or you had been doing things that you thought you were going to be doing for the rest of your life. And now all of a sudden everything is different. We never know. Okay. There was no greater lesson to me than this pandemic in that regard. Because just when you thought, this is all I'm going to be doing, you have people out there doing things that they never thought they would ever do or experience, because they were like, this is what life is. It doesn't change. It's not going to change for me. But look, it changed for the whole entire planet. Now what? And I think I don't think that people were prepared for that. And it was just like, wait. So you have a lot of people who are like applying those brakes, like, wait a minute, I'm not ready for this. This wasn't supposed to happen. But it did. And so there should never be that expectation that things are going to remain static.
Right. You could always ask yourself is in any situation, how am I showing up here? Right. Because that'll just stop you in your tracks and say, okay, I'm busy. I got to go to Fairbanks. I got to stop at 7 different places,
Right.
and I'm rushing from one to the other, and my kids are not with me, so I can do whatever I want. Well, I'm interacting with that dealer for the parts that I need
Right.
to make sure I bring it 200 miles south of me, where I can use that part. It's going to be the right one. If I go in there just busy, he's not going to care, or
Right.
she's not going to care. So how are we showing up? No matter what's going on around us, we can always have control of the now and how we are showing up in the now.
I just love it. I'm writing down all these nuggets because these things are important. These are important for us
Yes,
to always consider. Okay, so like I said, now we talked about, we were talking about Antarctica, and you talked about the emotional intelligence there. Was there another one that stood out on one of the continents when you think about leadership that really said, and you're just like, it was something that maybe you didn't expect?
Yeah, thank you for the question. There was, for the North American continent, it was courage, and courage to accept the different types of kindness of others, right?
Yeah.
So let me just repeat that, because then I'll expand on it just more. The courage to accept other kinds of kindness, or different types of kindness. Now, in my book, I write about this in length, so I'm just going to do the high points.
Gotcha.
I was a 10th grade global history teacher, and one day I realized that this is not working out for me. I have a lot more to do. My students that I am going to hitchhike from Western New York to Alaska with no money or no food, believe it or not.
Wow.
Yeah, and they all looked at me like I was crazy. Now, I set this up differently in the book, but I'm just telling you the high level. So when I hitchhiked from New York to Alaska, that's basically 5,000 miles with no money and no food on purpose. Everybody in my whole community went nuts. It takes courage just to say that. Fine, I said it. Now I'm gonna have to do it.
Right.
When I first got out there on the road, I was not gonna take a handout. I had to work for the food. I had to work for food. If I got a ride, someone pulled over, that's their business. They pick me up. My job is to entertain them through conversation, right? Long story short, what do I mean by have the courage to accept the various kinds of kindness? Well, I figure kindness is just, somebody being nice to me. Well, when I would go to a restaurant that was family owned, I didn't go to a McDonald's, I didn't go to a chain restaurant.
Right.
I would go to a family owned restaurant, go in and ask for the owner or the manager. And then when that person appeared, I would say, my name is Mike Green. I was passing by and I noticed that your parking lot had some cigarette butts and some trash in the bushes. And if you give me a bag, I'll clean it up for a half hour. If you just give me a sandwich and I'll be on my way. And you're like, oh, no. We can't do that. We'll just give you something. I was like, no, I need to work for it. And that just the courage to ask for a basic human need taught me a lot, but then also the courage to be able to accept their kindness differently. Now, when I got that bag of trash, they would usually have to come out and get me, say, hey, honey, it's 30 minutes. Come on, honey, come on in. They would have a whole spread, full course meals in front of me, and a to-go container for the next day. And if it was a woman who had children, she'd always say, here's a quarter, call your mother.
Right.
Let her know you're all right.
Right.
There was various different kinds of kindness there. Again, I never accepted money. I never touched money for the whole 9.5 day journey.
Wow.
But there's so much different kindness out there. And people's intention of kindness, we'll say intention, there's that word again,
yes.
Is different from one to the other. They thought they were doing me a favor, just driving me 5 miles down the road. Well, now I'm in the middle of a city. You don't ever want to hitchhike through a city. You want to hitchhike, get on the other side of the city.
Right.
So,
wow.
So, yeah.
Wow. But that's huge. That's huge.
Mm-hmm.
Like, get the courage, because that's another thing that sometimes is difficult for us to do, to be able to ask for help.
True.
Pride. We sit there and we say, oh, I don't need anybody's help. I can do it on my own. I can do it independently. But two
So you
things
can't.
resonated with me in that story that you told is that, number one, you spoke it. You spoke it and said you were going to do it.
Yeah.
And when you do that, there's a level of accountability that comes with it, because now you put it out there. And now there's that expectation. Oh, well, he said he's going to do it. Now we're going to see if he's going to do it. Oh, no money and no food? Huh. Let's see if he's going to do it. So now, everybody's standing there with their arms crossed, like, prove it. let me see you do it. So now you put it out there, and there's a level of accountability that comes with that. And I believe that as a person who says it, there's a level of responsibility to yourself and to the people who you said it to try to, bring that to fruition. So that stood out to me. And then, like you said, the ability to be able to ask for help and to not be in a place, you can't be in a leadership role and operate in a space of pride. There's no, you cannot be a proud person and not ask for help, because it takes so many moving parts to be able to do something.
Right. It takes courage.
Yeah, it takes that courage, like you said, to ask and to recognize that you're in a space where there's a need. And now you have to go and fulfill that need. And how do you do that? You're going to have to go and ask somebody, like you said, but by not having any money, I'm sure when your stomach started growling, it was like, okay, now, so let me look around now. Let me see what I have to do. And now I have to ask somebody, because I don't have any money to get my own food. I've got to go out there and ask somebody or to, make provisions so that I can get what it is that I need.
Right. Because I told the students, I wanted to teach them that they can believe in the kindness of others. Now, I did this in 2000. I would do it tomorrow if I had to, or if I needed to. But I wanted to teach the students that you can believe in the kindness of others, that everything on Fox News or CNN or everything, this is when just all day news was taking off, that you read about something unfortunate happened in Iowa and you think it's going to happen in New York, which it could, but you're like living like you're over there.
Right.
But you got to believe in the kindness of others, and so that's what I did.
Yeah. I mean, these are wonderful nuggets. These are things that are important, like you said, as you're seeking to move to the next level in your personal life. And I believe that it starts with us. It starts with the decisions that we make. It starts with the truth that we create for ourselves. And so I think that these are some important things that people need to know as we move forward, as we live in this now, and as we progress and start looking and seeking to do what it is that we're going to do 5 years from now. So like you said, we've got some important foundational steps here that you shared with us, and I thank you for bringing those to the forefront. So what I want to do first and foremost is make sure that people know how to get your book, because they need to know how to go about doing all these things. So first, tell people how they can get in contact with you.
Just go to, thank you for that. Just go to MikeGreenLeadership.com. It's pretty simple. Mike, M-I-K-E, Green, G-R-E-E-N, Leadership. And you go on there and you'll be able to see what I do. And then ultimately you can find where you can get the book. You can go on Amazon as well for Wander Must, A Hero's Journey to 7 Truths. And it's got 31 5-star reviews so far on Amazon. So that's really good. And it takes you all around the world. You go on a trip. A lot of my social media people say I'm going on a trip. Mike Green.
That's it. Right. So you said all things Mike Green. We go to MikeGreenLeadership.com, or you can go on Amazon to get the book. And we'll definitely have that in the description for the show when it airs. So that way you can grab your copy and find out about your journey. And that is just something like I said, we want to give them a little taste. And now that we've piqued your curiosity and given you some tools to begin your journey, it's important to have that resource to be able to tap into and to connect.
Right.
So that way you can begin to create your own truth and to start your own journey. Okay, now another question that I ask my guests every time I close out my show is, what are you doing to live in the now? How are you living and navigating in this space? Because sometimes people just don't quite know what to do, and we like to give them some ideas of what others are doing to live in this now.
I take time of no matter what I'm doing to support either my family and emotionally to support. Like I'm going to go fishing with my boys here later this afternoon. And also ask people how I can help them. What can I do for you? So that's my end of my question to you is, what is there anything I can do for you?
Awesome. You just done it.
Okay.
Coming in, being a part of this platform and helping people, like you said, to move to the next level in their lives, to be able to make those pivots that are necessary in order for them to not be stagnant, because that's what we don't want. We want to be able to move. Like you said, this life is fluid. It's not static. And so it's important to do that. And one thing that I want them to remember is, again, that a relationship is the currency of a fruitful life. That is something that if you take nothing else away, remember that is the currency. That is the way in which you're going to pay it forward, and in all the things that you're doing. It's those relationships that you establish, because that is the best form of leadership, being able to have positive and engaging and meaningful relationships with others. That's going to help to elevate you. And just like you said, in your own life, in your own experience of leadership, what you can do to help others. That is a true leader. That is true leadership. So I thank you for sharing these wonderful tips with us, for coming on the show all the way from Alaska. and being able to really connect with those and the pique interest, and hopefully people will continue on that journey. They'll reach out, they'll listen to your story, they'll read your book, and be able to again start those journeys for themselves. So again, I thank you. Are there any parting words that you like to give our listeners before we go?
Thank you. I'm grateful to be here today. Reach out anytime if I can help you or any of your listeners. Any friend of yours is a friend of mine, and we are now friends. So I'm grateful for that.
I'm coming for fish dinner, actually. So I'll be.
Yeah. All right. Well, I appreciate you very much. Just reach out if I can help you. MikeGreenLeadership.com. In any way, I'm grateful for this experience. You've enhanced my day, and now my trajectory has gone a little bit bigger and better because of this conversation. So thank you.
Awesome. Thank you. It was my pleasure, and it was absolute pleasure having you. And as we're living in this now and things are changing, we'll have you come back. So it may not be the last time that they hear or see you. So we'll look forward, like you said, to continuing this new relationship that we started. So I'm excited for that and for the journey ahead for you and for all of us. And with that will do it for this edition of the How Now podcast, where we talk about how to live in the now. And until we see you the next time, I say peace.
All right.